my name is Ihor, and today I'd like to talk about the modular, and specifically about this trio here, Basimilus Iteritas Alter, Basimilus Iteritas, and Ataraxic Iteritas. These three are digital oscillators or synthesizers from noise engineering, and they're all based on the same Iteritas hardware platform. And yeah, they kind of similar, they do have some similarities, but also they are so different. And today I'd like to make a little review, compare how they sound, and hopefully answer the question which one from these three is the best for bass lines. Let's do it. So, Basimilus Iteritas Alter. This is the universal drum synth, and I think it needs no introduction actually. Great voice for drums, for percussions, for leads, and also for bass lines. I did a couple of techno breaks with it, check them out here. Next one, Basimilus Iteritas. This is an industrial synth and it's based on Basimilus but with more madness into it. It's pretty cool synth as well for drums, for percussions, for bass lines, for leads as well, but also for drones because you can bypass the internal envelope and VCA and generate like an endless sound out of it. And last but not least, Ataraxic Iteritas, and spoiler alert, this is my favorite voice, like not only from noise engineering but ever. And this one maybe is not as good for drums as Basimilus and Manis, but when it comes to tonal sounds, it just stands out. I also did a techno break with it, check it out here. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, they are all based on the same platform, hence there is no surprise that they look almost exactly the same. Let me cover some similarities that they have and also how they differ, and let's compare how they sound. Cool, I got this little patch here, which looks a little bit complicated to be honest, but the main idea is that Pamela gives us the trigs and I multiply them into Basimilus and into Manis and into Ataraxic via the envelope, and the pitch also multiplied into these guys here. And then I also utilized Lapsus Os as sort of like mixer. Basically, this is Basimilus. This is Manis. And this is Ataraxic. So in that way we can basically compare them and how they sound. So, and I'm gonna start with pitch. Basically pitch is, of course, synthesizers, they do have pitch modulation. But when it comes to knobs, Ataraxic and Manis, they have encoders. And Basimilus has like a potentiometer. This makes Ataraxic and Manis a little bit better to, or a little bit easier to set up. When it comes to the envelopes, then Basimilus and Manis, they do have internal VCAs and envelopes, which can be controlled on Basimilus. Attack can be controlled, and as well as decay. And it has two separate knobs for that. Where Manis has one knob which goes like, first it increases the decay and then after the 12 o'clock it starts increasing the attack as well. And the interesting thing about Manis is that if you go all the way clockwise to the right, it's gonna bypass the internal envelope and just generate the sound. Basimilus cannot do that. So next thing, morphing options, and that's where Basimilus and Ataraxic are quite similar because they have a morphing option in between the wave shapes. So Basimilus continuously morphs in between, yeah, like the triangle wave and then the sawtooth wave and the pulse wave. And Ataraxic also has triangle wave, the sawtooth, and then the pulse wave as well. But on the Manis, it doesn't have morphing options because it only uses the sawtooth wave from Basimilus and adds madness into it. Yeah, but that's all when it comes to the morphing option. And next option for modulation would be folding. And that's where Ataraxic and Basimilus, they do have fold. So, and sounds like this. I think on Basimilus, if I fold the triangle wave, it sounds pretty cool. and on Ataraxic as well. There is fold, soft fold, different algorithm, but the idea is the same. So when it comes to modulation, Ataraxic has time modulation, and also Manis has saw modulation, which are basically sort of like pulse width modulation or something like that. Let's have a listen. Manis. Yeah, it goes kind of crazy at the end. And then Ataraxic. Yeah. And also when it comes to Manis, it has distortion here. So it's sort of like replacement for folding, but rather it distorts or destroys the wave shape. Which can be utilized as noise as well, I guess. Though when it comes to noise, for example, Basimilus, if you go on the attack to the left, it starts introducing the white noise into the envelope. And on Ataraxic itself, noise is a separate knob, can be controlled separately. So yeah, there is some similarities and differences, of course. Though when it comes to Manis, Manis has the low-pass filter on board, so you can basically bypass the external low-pass filter if you wish. This is two-pole, non-resonant, low-pass filter. And also Manis has profundity, or depth or deepness. This one is interesting. Basically, the moment you introduce a little bit of profundity, it's gonna introduce additional oscillators, which gonna be out of phase, which creates sort of like a chorus effect. And the more you go clockwise, the more detuned the additional oscillators will be, and that creates some sort of interesting sounds at the end. So here we have some out of phase oscillators, and then yeah. But when it comes to Basimilus, it has harmonizer, so basically you can introduce more harmonics. It does kind of similar thing to Manis, basically introduces more oscillators, but in tune, and then you can spread them with this knob here, which is gonna detune the all oscillators but fundamental, right? And the more you go to the right, it introduces more decay into sound. And you can end up with such weird sound as well. And when it comes to harmonizing Ataraxic, it has this comp filter, which on the left introduces some high harmonics, and on the right, some low harmonics. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the harmonizing. And going back to Manis, this has this bash knob, which I was confused a lot with at the really beginning, because I thought that default position of this knob is like fully here, fully to the left. And when I listened to it, it was like, is it default sound of the oscillator? Noise engineering, really? Yeah, and then I read the manual, and actually this is kind of a bipolar attenuator. And what it does is, it does pretty interesting, cool thing. Basically, imagine you have like low pass filter here, right? And then you can route the envelope with this knob, but it's gonna be routed into a low pass filter, into smash, and into profundity. Like if you go all the way to clockwise, it's gonna do this kind of crazy thing. Counterclockwise, it introduces this into kind of negative envelope direction. But if you do it a little bit, create some sort of like a really nice envelope bass sound. That's, I think, more or less it when it comes to the knobs. And then we have also different switches here, like 2 switches per each, and each switch has 3 positions. And basically for Basimilus and for Manis, the mode switch, the first switch, is exactly the same. It switches in between skin, liquid, and metal. And basically skin is a tonal mode, and liquid is exactly the same as skin but with the pitch envelope at the really beginning. And metal is a fem synth basically to create some really interesting, not really tonal or not really melodic sounds as well. So Manis has exactly the same. But when it comes to Ataraxic, Ataraxic is actually wavetable oscillator, right? So, and for mod, what you can do is you can switch different wave tables and then scan them with the wave shape knob. Yeah, the more you go to the right, the craziest it goes usually. Nice. Yeah, and the second switch, basically, this is the pitch range switch, which switches in between bass, alto and treble. And it's exactly the same for all of them. I think it switches in between like 2 octaves in bass, 2 octaves in alto and 2 octaves in treble. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the controls. Also Basimilus and Manis, they do have their like hit button, which you can click basically and yeah, hit them, like it's gonna trigger the internal envelope. But for Ataraxic you need an external envelope and VCA to do that. So cool. And for me the beauty of these modules is actually that you can modulate all these parameters simultaneously. Like it has 7 knobs and 2 switches and then the envelope, right? So, and you have 10 inputs here, 7 for knobs, 2 for switches and 1 for trigger. Same for Ataraxic, but instead of trigger it has a sync, which you can actually sync the wave shape to another wave shape and create a hard sync sound actually. So yeah, these are the 3 oscillators. Yeah, I think you find this review useful at least, or maybe it will help you to make a decision. But now let me change the setup a little bit and jam on them and yeah, have a little bit of fun. So yeah, I got the Octatrack here with some Techno groove prepared already. And here, yeah, nothing has changed. No, actually I clocked. I put the clock and reset or run from the MIDI interface into the Pamela's new workout, and yeah, the MIDI coming from the Octatrack into the Modular. And yeah, so I have this simple kick drum here, and let's listen to back to Basimilus. Let's mix it a little bit. That's where we stopped, I think. And then Manis. Ataraxic. We can also start utilizing the filter here. So I'd like to put a trigger into the ADSR envelope and use it as a filter envelope. So it's a little bit tricky, becoming a little bit tricky. So, but I'm gonna patch the output here into frequency here, and yeah. And actually all the oscillators go through the filter. Maybe a little reverb will be good. Quite long, but just a little bit. And chorus, just to give it a little bit less mono-ish sound. Yeah, something like this. On Basimilus, if you go into like morphing it into the triangle wave, it creates this kind of subby bass, which I really like. It's hard to hear, I guess. This is the resonance playing with us. No, actually I think this was the envelope. Yeah, and then something like that. And then we go back into morphing. You know, I think what would be cool is to go, I have a couple of LFOs here set up. So if I go into, let's say this long one is a track 7, and if I go into, the only thing I'd like to use right now is to find a level and go into 0. Basically attenuate, and then go into morph on Basimilus and start introducing a level a little bit so it can modulate by itself just a little bit. Quick mutes, my favorite mode. What if I modulate instead of morph, leave it here and go into fold? Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, folds it completely. So it's all about finding the right spot. I think for a lot of noise engineering voices, at least, you really need to be, you know, like a little soft with modulation. Like the guy said, I never use attenuators, and that's why I think you cannot really utilize these voices properly, because like if you introduce a little of attenuation or a little of LFO, which is going to be attenuated LFO, you can find really nice sounding spots on this on any noise engineering oscillators. Like for example, right now it folds the wave shape and then it goes to some sort of extreme. But if I leave it at some spot not to get into that extreme, that would be cool. Okay, let's do minus. Minus with its own low pass filter and the envelope. What if we go with distortion? Oh, this one. Please do not self-oscillate, do not kill my ears. Yeah. Let's copy the scene 13 and paste into scene 15. And on scene 15, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little more reverb. Maybe a little LFO. I always use a little ducking. Nice. A little less distortion. You can go crazy with it. Maybe build it up like this. But if you go like a little bit, you know, listen to this bass line. What am I doing? Without LFO. It's a really nice one. Nice. Let's go into the Ataraxic as well. Harmonics, fold. Let's modulate the waveform. That's gonna be funny. Let's try different wavetables. Yeah, that should be a kick there. Yeah, that's really weird. Let's go back to maybe shape. Maybe another LFO as well, a faster one to the time modulation. That's what happens when you go like 100%. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But if I go again into track 5, right? And into the level, not the wave, into the level. So this is 0, right? And if I introduce just tiny touch, it creates some sort of like a really interesting sound or really interesting sonic characteristic to it. What? Please, work. No? What am I doing wrong, I wonder? Anyway. And then we can, for example, build it with noise. I don't like this shape change, neither the time modulation. Yeah. Go back to minus. And back to Basimilus. Yeah. Back to minus. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. As I mentioned before, Ataraxic is my favorite module, and I think I will choose it if it comes to the bass line. So let's say this is the winner for today. Minus is definitely a good one. Right now it has even a little more kind of subby bass right now in this kind of patch, but definitely you can do the same on Ataraxic. When it comes to some distorted madness, of course, I will choose this one. And Basimilus. Basimilus is good. Like, as I mentioned, no introduction needed. Best synth for drums, and also it can do some pretty cool bass lines like sub bass and sawtooth bass. And the pulse width bass, pulse wave. I hope you guys find this video useful and you liked watching it. Put a like on it then. If you did not, put a dislike and let me know how can I improve those videos for you guys. Throw me a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about this format. And until the next time, have fun.